Hello everyone and welcome to the cup draw video for the PCN. I got another quick one for you here. I actually got a couple draws to do. We are drawing the quarterfinals of the League Cup in PCN, and we also have our late night mid-season Open Cup, the round of 16 draw to do. So let's go ahead and run this. So we have our first cup date officially. Gonna be looking back at the round of 16 here in the League Cup. So, looking at the results from the round of 16, Young Boys with a 1-0 win over Atlanta. Uh, Orlando 7-0 over AC Milan. Did talk to Jigsaw about that one. Apparently, they a bunch of their guys had to get off for whatever reason. Um, at 9 o'clock, and they had a whole makeshift back line. And after a couple early goals, it just was one of those. You're pushing in a cup game. It doesn't really matter what the score is. And Orlando did the business. So 7-0 Orlando moves on. Next matchup, Valencia 1-0 after added extra time over Arsenal. Same scoreline exactly, with Leverkusen taking, Benfica to the limit and beating them. Juventus 2-1 over Barcelona. And then we had Manchester United advancing 5-3 on penalties against Chelsea after a 1-1 draw. New York City 1-0 over Manchester City, and that means Real Madrid 1-0 over LA Galaxy. So no real, I think, Cinderella stories this season. I think Leverkusen are the team lowest in the table still remaining, but obviously, only one League One team even getting to this round, and then they were immediately knocked out. So, maybe not the upset this time around. We've had some threatening lately, but we do have some really good teams left. And this is them over here. So the remaining 8 teams, obviously, we've got Leverkusen, Juventus, Manchester United, New York City FC, Orlando Pirates, Real Madrid, Valencia, and the Young Boys. So this is a completely random draw. Anybody can draw anybody. And let's see who we get. So first team out is that New York City team that is really surprising people, and they're really making that push, I think, for top 6. And they'll be taking on Real Madrid. Next game will feature Bayer Leverkusen. Like I said, I think the lowest rating team left in the competition in terms of Super League standings, and they'll be taking on one at the very top, which is Young Boys, currently in second place with some games in hand. Next up is Orlando Pirates, obviously the current title holders and first place team in Super League, and they'll be taking on Valencia, which means our final matchup will feature Manchester United against Juventus. Good old Magic and Italiano, the oldest strikers in the league, going at it head to head. So that is your League Cup round of quarterfinal draw. Of course, the round of quarterfinal is how you always say it. There'll be one more draw next week for the semifinals, and then we will have all the draws done for the League Cup. So that is that draw. Let's go ahead and move on to Late Night League. So here we are over looking at Late Night League. We don't have the cup page yet for it. We still don't have that, but essentially, the midseason cup is just going to be all 16 teams can be drawn against anyone else in the league. So Phalanx can play Cartel, Phalanx can play Illegales, Illegales can play King's Court, anything in between. So it's going to be two-legged starting tomorrow night on Thursday at 11 p.m. I put the details in the chat today, so we'll see who everyone draws. So we've got our 16 teams here. Let's go ahead and run this draw. So first team up will be Criminal, who, looking at where they are in the table, I think they're pretty high, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know why I just did that. Just want to look at the standings. There we go. They're in 5th place currently, hanging in there right behind, crowded pack. And their first matchup will be against Too Much Chorizo. Too Much Chorizo sitting there in 10th place, right outside the playoff spot. Next up is Dank Society, kind of a rebuilt Dank Society. Currently in 8th place, just above the playoff line, and they will be taking on Elite 11. Another team I think that maybe had bigger expectations than they've so far done, but they did have manager change, and they're sitting there only a few points out of the playoffs. So Elite 11, Dank Society, 2 of the best teams from last season, going at it in the Cup. Next up is that Illegales team down at the bottom, still trying to work out the kinks and get things going, and they'll be taking on Cartel. So there is a almost top versus bottom matchup. Next up is Baron Rojo, the second season of that team. They're doing better this time around. They're up in 7th after being near the bottom last season, and they'll be taking on No Summer 2K20. who are just kind of on the precipice of playoffs as well. Next up is Most Hated. I believe Most Hated are near the top. Yes, they're here in fourth place. Really strong team all season long. And they'll be taking on Tofu Clan in the first round. Next matchup will be Secret Society. Team and Sun have gone a little bit of a mini rebuild mid-season here. Another team, though, that's still in the playoff hunt, and they will be taking on Fallout FC, another team just right and around the same spot in the standings. Next up is 1836 FC, who have pushed on from last season, looking to solidify a top four, top five spot this season, and they will be taking on Cracked. First season for them. Another team, just it's really crowded right now and not a lot of separating. I think there's a kind of a top five and then a little mini group, and then sort of everyone else at the bottom is really close. So that's who they'll be taking on. And then our final matchup will feature Phalanx against King's Court. So we have Cartel and Illegales and Phalanx and King's Court. So, and then we've got Tofu and most hated. So kind of unlucky for third and fourth. First and second get the better draws on paper, but it's a cup. You never know what's going to happen. So this game should be a lot of fun. We had our first cup like this last season, of course. Phalanx looking to defend their title. Looks like they'll be starting that off against King's Court. And so this won't be a set bracket. So next round there will be another random draw. So just because it looks like you might play someone in the next round, it is actually going to be a random draw. So you can play anyone. We're going to do it here today in PCN Cups draws with the Dorsey. I am slowly losing my mind. If you've been watching these cup draws for a couple years, you can probably get a sense of that. But I will be here until my mind is completely turned to mush. Um, Outro music, baby.